regular scheduled meeting for Monday, September 28th, 2020. We appreciate those that are viewing this evening via their computer, as this meeting is being held in a cyber manner this evening. The meeting is officially called to order. At this time, I'd like to ask City Administrator Patrick Lawton to lead us in an invocation. Mr. Lawton.
Thank you, Mayor. Let us pray. Dear Lord, I pray that you guide us as always. Satisfy the needs that need to be met during this meeting. Strengthen us as we make tough decisions. I pray that we will be like a well-watered garden, like a spring whose waters never fail. I pray that we will be fruitful. Father, please guide us so that this meeting can be productive. Let us be effective and decisive. Amen.
Thank you for that opening invocation. This time I'd like to read a statement into the record. As normal during this COVID-19 era and having meetings electronically, I have a notice from the state. All local governing bodies in the state of Tennessee have been impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. Germantown certainly is no exception. In an effort to carry out its governance and operational responsibilities lawfully and effectively, while also considering the protection of public health, safety, and welfare, the Germantown City Administration has taken steps to conduct Board of Mayor and Alderman and other public meetings electronically. These actions were taken in response to Governor Bill Lee's Executive Order number 60, an order extending Executive Order number 16, previously extended by Executive Order number 34, and also previously extended by Executive Order number 51. Which suspended the requirements of the Tennessee Open Meetings Act to the extent necessary to allow governing bodies subject to the act to meet and conduct essential business by electronic means. Germantown Board of Mayor and Alderman has determined that meeting electronically is necessary to protect the health, safety, and welfare of its citizens in light of the COVID-19 pandemic. Further, notice of such electronic meetings has been and will continue to be published in the same manner as is currently used for regular meetings. The public is also and will continue to be able to view the agenda and have live access to the actual meetings by electronic means, by logging into the Germantown's webpage and by clicking the appropriate link. Video recordings of the meetings will be made available as soon as possible after each meeting on the city's website at www.germantown-tn.gov. These measures are temporary and are due to expire on October 28th, 2020, unless further action is taken by Governor Lee. That brings us to establishing a quorum. City Clerk Betty, could you call the roll to establish a quorum this evening?
Alderman Sanders.
Present.
Alderman Gibson. Here. Alderman Massey.
Here.
Alderman Owens.
I'm here.
Vice Mayor Yonda.
I'm here. Present.
Thank you. All board members are present. We have established a quorum for this evening's meeting. And as such, item 4 on the agenda is setting and adopting an agenda for tonight's meeting. The board and the public was issued this agenda on Wednesday and was submitted in proper methods. At this time, is there a motion to set the agenda as presented to the public?
Move to approve.
There is a motion by the Vice Mayor. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second by Alderman Owens. Please call the roll.
Mayor, may I offer an amendment, please?
Sure.
I would like to see if the board, my colleagues would agree to place item 8D on the regular agenda, please.
Item 8D, which is contract amendment, public safety uniforms, that's been moved forward in the form of a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second by Alderman Massey. Please call the roll on the amendment, please.
Alderman Sanders.
Yes.
Alderman Gibson.
Yes.
Alderman Massey.
Yes.
Alderman Owens.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Yonda.
Sure. Yes.
Very well. That amendment passes, and we will add item 8D to the regular agenda as item 11, if you want to make a note of that. It was previously motioned and seconded to set and adopt the agenda. And it
Mayor?
has been, excuse me, one moment, please. It has been modified, so that motion will include the modification. Yes, I'm not sure. Yes, Alderman.
Owens.
Yes, Alderman Owens, yes.
Amendment, please.
Okay, sure. Your amendment?
If the board would be willing, I believe that item 10, the amendment to the interlocal agreement, could be placed on the consent or preliminary agenda if the board is willing.
There's a motion to move item 10 to the preliminary agenda. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second on moving item 10 from the regular agenda, that is amendment to interlocal agreement, Shelby County Government, to the preliminary agenda. Please call the roll on that amendment, please.
Have discussion on that, Mayor?
These are procedural matters and they do not warrant a discussion. Please call the roll.
Alderman Gibson,
Yes.
Alderman Massey,
No.
Alderman Owens,
Yes.
Alderman Yonda,
Yes.
Alderman Sanders.
Yes.
Very well. Item 10, and just for, in essence, for scorekeeping purposes, we can adjust item 8D from the preliminary agenda, and that will now be item 10, or formerly the former item 10, amendment to interlocal agreement. I'm making a note of that. That's why there's a little bit of a pause here. As it was amended on 2 different occasions and properly motioned.
I have another motion.
Did you have a, okay, sure. What is your motion?
With the board's approval, I would like to move item M from the preliminary agenda to the regular agenda.
Item M, one moment, please. Item N, subdivision development contract number 514, Old Field Green subdivision. It's been properly motioned for an amendment to adopting the agenda. Is there a second on that particular amendment?
I will second that. I think the public would benefit from.
Thank you. That's that. Thank you for the second. Please call the roll.
Alderman Massey,
Yes.
Alderman Owens,
No.
Alderman Yonda,
No.
Alderman Sanders,
Yes.
Alderman Gibson.
Abstain.
The motion fails without the proper approval, majority. When we return to the traditional agenda, which has been modified by 2 amendments and properly moved and motioned, please call the roll.
Alderman Owens,
Point of order, Mayor.
What is your point of order, sir?
Did the parliamentarian say that on this particular motion that it requires the majority of the board, or are you required to vote?
There's no parliamentarian present this evening. There's no requirement that I vote on a particular issue. The vote is a 2-2 tie, and so it fails. Please continue with the roll call. I'm not sure if you got the first person announced, Clerk.
Alderman Owens,
Yes.
Alderman Yonda,
Yes.
Alderman Sanders,
No.
Alderman Gibson,
Yes.
Alderman Massey.
Abstain.
The agenda has been set and adopted this evening. That takes us to item 5 this evening, approval of the minutes from the regularly scheduled meeting of September 14th, 2020. The minutes have been presented to the public as part of the packet that was released on Wednesday of last week. Are there any modifications or changes to the agenda? I'm sorry, to the minutes this evening? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the minutes as presented to the public?
Move to approve.
It's a motion by the vice mayor. Is there a second?
Second.
It's a second by Alderman Owens. I believe that was Alderman Owens. Is that correct?
Alderman Sanders.
I'm sorry, Alderman Sanders. Thank you. Please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Yonda,
Yes.
Alderman Sanders,
Yes.
Alderman Gibson,
Yes.
Alderman Massey,
Yes. Yes.
Alderman Owens.
Yes.
Minutes have been approved and passed. That brings us to item 6 on the agenda, citizens to be heard. Clerk Betty, were there any submissions this week for citizens to be heard?
No, Mayor, no one came forward.
Thank you. That concludes citizens to be heard. We move to item number 7 on the agenda this evening, Beautification Commission Business Award. Alderman Sanders will make that presentation. Alderman Sanders, you have the floor. I believe Park Director Pam Beasley will show some slides. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much. This month's Beautification Commission Business Award has been awarded to Keith and Sherry Collier, along with their sons Brett and Chris Collier, who are the owners of REI Nation, which is a family-owned and operated real estate investment firm business since 2003, and moved to Germantown in 2019. This Germantown business has exceptional curb appeal, catching the eye of all who pass by their facility. The grounds are planted with annual color against a backdrop of well-manicured shrubs, hedges, and small ornamental trees. A variety of native hardwood shade trees complement the lush turf and beautiful architecture of the buildings. The seasonal plantings at this property entrance and the entrance sign is edged with stones for erosion protection and provides an interesting decorative edge. Expert lawn care designs and manages the landscape for this site. The level of landscape detail and maintenance and care of this Germantown property demonstrates their pride in their appearance and their commitment to helping our city look beautiful. The Beautification Commission expresses much appreciation to this Germantown business for their efforts and is pleased to present the September Beautification Commission Business Award to REI Nation.
Thank you, Alderman Sanders, for your presentation this evening. Thank you, Parks Director Pam Beasley, for showing us some of those beautiful pictures. If you're not familiar with this location, it is the former Ezon building, I believe, and it's right across the street from our municipal square. And I would concur with the Alderman's presentation. The site has truly been enhanced by landscaping and beautification. So we thank the Clothier family and for making an investment in our community by purchasing the property and then also by beautifying it as well. That brings us to item number 8 on the agenda this evening, the preliminary agenda. As was mentioned earlier, the preliminary agenda has been modified to some extent. Item D on the agenda, formerly the contract amendment public safety uniforms, has been replaced with item 10 from the regular agenda, amendment to interlocal agreement, Shelby County Government. I'll read the preliminary agenda into the record. Item 8A, agreement, Center for Applied Earth Science and Engineering Research, also known as CSER. Item 8B, change order number 4, cleaning of well number 8 and repairs to well number 8 and 9 and HSP number 2 at the Southern Avenue Water Treatment Plant, repairs to well number 2 at the Johnson Road Water Treatment Plant. Item 8C, competitive seal proposal authorization, outdoor pools resurfacing at the Germantown Athletic Club. Item 8D, amendment to interlocal agreement, Shelby County Government. Item 8E, a donation for canine armor. Item 8F, donations for park and recreation for benches. Item 8G, purchase for ammunition. Item 8H, purchase annual cloud storage. Item 8I, purchase annual fleet and heavy equipment tires. Item 8J, purchase bulk concrete. Item 8K, purchase bulk crushed aggregates. Item 8L, purchase fire alarm system replacement at the Germantown Athletic Club, Germantown Performing Arts Center, and the Great Hall Conference Center. Item 8M, subdivision contract number 814, Old Field Green subdivision. Is there a motion to adopt the preliminary agenda as modified?
Move to approve.
There's been a motion by the vice mayor. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Alderman Owens. Please call the roll.
Alderman Sanders,
Yes.
Alderman Gibson,
Yes.
Alderman Massey,
Abstain.
Alderman Owens,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Yonda.
Yes.
Thank you, Clerk Betty. The preliminary agenda has been approved and adopted and approved. We move to the regular agenda this evening. First order of business is item 9 on the agenda. That item is ordinance number 2020-7, rezoning of a single parcel from R3 two-family residential to OG, Old Germantown, third and final reading. Mr. Lawton, who will be making the presentation this evening for staff?
Mayor, Mr. Cameron Ross will handle that.
Director Ross, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor. Let me get this queued up. From R3 two-family residential to Old Germantown. The area in question is this. Is everyone able to see my slides?
We can.
Thank you. So this is the third reading of a rezoning from one parcel from R3 two-family residential to Old Germantown. The area in question is this parcel that you see just north of Poplar Pike and south of the railroad. It is owned by the Bagarov, and they will be opening an office in this facility if this zoning is approved on third and final reading. There will be no changes to the property as it stands, and there have been no changes since the first reading of this in August and the second reading 2 weeks ago on the 14th of September, along with the public hearing that night. Staff is happy to answer any questions. Just as a bit of history, this area was originally zoned to Old Germantown in 1990. At that point, this parcel, as well as the public works yard parcel, was pulled out of that rezoning request. So that is why this one parcel remains, and this request is in front of you for third reading. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. Is there a motion to approve ordinance 2020-7 on third and final reading, the rezoning of a single parcel of property located at 7708 Poplar Pike from R3 two-family residential to OG Old Germantown? Is there a motion?
Sure, I'll make that motion.
Second.
Alderman Owens makes the motion, and Alderman Gibson seconds the motion. Alderman Owens, would you like the floor?
No, sir. Made some comments at the first reading and public hearing. I think I don't have any further comments.
Thank you. Thank you for your brevity. Alderman Gibson, would you like to the floor?
No, thank you.
Thank you. The floor is open for discussion. Please call the roll.
Alderman Gibson,
Yes.
Alderman Massey,
Yes.
Alderman Owens, Alderman Yonda,
Yes.
Alderman Sanders.
Yes.
Thank you, Clerk Betty. The property is properly rezoned and has been through all three and final readings. That takes us to, if you want to go back in your folders, in your notebooks, to item 8D, which is now actually item 10 on the regular agenda since there was another item moved. That's contract amendment, public safety uniforms. Mr. Lawton, who will make that presentation this evening?
I'll make that presentation, Mayor.
You have the floor,
The
sir.
City of Germantown, thank you. The City of Germantown is recommending the use of Mid-South Solutions to provide uniform apparel for our police and fire departments and our EMS. This agenda item authorizes the city to amend the original contract with Mid-South Solutions in order to acquire uniforms this fiscal year under the same pricing as last year. Staff requests the approval of a total amount not to exceed $57,100 for police, $30,400 for fire, and $7,700 for our emergency medical services folks who run our ambulance. Given the fact that the operating budgets were held in FY21 at FY20 levels, and in some cases actually below that, and the fact that there is no change to the contract pricing with this vendor, the administration is recommending that the board authorize and approve the First Amendment to this uniform contract. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Lawton, for your presentation. Is there a motion to authorize the amendment to the current contract and to purchase uniforms for the police and fire departments from Mid-South Solutions through June 30th, 2021? Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
There's a motion by Alderman Gibson, and it sounds like a second by the Vice Mayor. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, thank you, Vice Mayor. Alderman Gibson, would you like the floor at this time, ma'am?
Yes, sir. Just briefly, I know in looking at Ms. Pfeiffer's comments as far as on the agenda sheet, just stating that this contract is to be extended at the same price for the previous year, given the circumstances that we find ourselves in. I don't have any issues whatsoever about this. Just wanted to comment on that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Alderman Gibson. Vice Mayor Yonda, would you like the floor now, sir?
No, I'm good with this.
Okay, thank you. Floor is open for discussion.
Yes, Mayor.
Alderman Sanders, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you to my colleagues for allowing this to be moved for discussion. I don't have any problem with contracting with this company or purchasing uniforms from any other provider. I just had a question about the extension of 8 months of this contract. I attempted to get some legal opinions from both MTAS and our city attorney about the legality of extending this for a period of 8 months without advertisement or bid. This original contract was advertised and bid back in 2015 for a 1-year period with 4 additional 1-year options. So we've known for a year that we were in our year and the contract expires October 11th. So I was curious why the staff didn't move forward with advertising for bids and replacing this contract with a new one.
Thank you, Alderman Sanders. Mr. Lawton, would you like to field that question?
Yes, sir, I can address that. Well, it primarily has to do with the adoption of the budget. Until the budget was in place for FY21, we could not go forward with advertising. We didn't want to presume anything in terms of the approval of the budget and the board's action on it. So once the budget was adopted, albeit in September, we moved forward. We have an outstanding relationship. Ms. Pfeiffer has established that with all of our vendors. And we approached these folks about the possible extension at the same price because, we had held the spending on most of our departmental operating budgets, including things like uniforms and supplies. So it was great that they were able to hold that at the same prices. And in addition to that, again, I want to reiterate that until the budget's adopted, we're not moving forward with acquiring services or equipment until the board adopts it. If it was under normal period time without COVID, Ms. Pfeiffer and her staff would have moved very quickly after July 1 to procure these services.
Thank you, Mr. Lawton. You have the floor, Mr. or Alderman Sanders.
Thank you. Do we have an order for any uniforms?
I asked all my guys. They said no.
Is there an order, any outstanding orders, Director Pfeiffer or Mr. Lawton?
I can address that.
Sure.
I can address that, Mayor. The current contract takes us through October 11th. So it's on a case-by-case basis when they purchase that. So they still have additional monies out there on the existing contract that they've been using. However, those monies will run out as the end of the contract ends in October.
Thank you. Roughly 3 weeks, so, or 2.5 weeks. Alderman Sanders, you have the floor still.
Thank you. So there's no outstanding need at the current time for the purchase of uniforms within the next, prior to October 11th?
I believe that's what was stated. Go ahead, Director
Thank you.
No,
Peafer.
sir. No, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Are we violating any of our procurement administrative policy or procedures by extending this contract for additional 8 months without putting it out for competitive bid?
Thank you, Alderman Sanders. I would look to Mr. Lawton, our city attorney, or Director Peafer to field that question.
I can answer that, sir, if that's
Go
all
ahead.
right.
Go ahead.
Yes, no, sir. Alderman, we are not breaking any of our procedures and policies. We have a valid contract, and a valid contract can be brought forward for an amendment, and that is stated. We also have all the policies and procedures in place to be able to do that. We look at our solicitations, each solicitation and contract extension with a lot of different things that go into it, and we figure out what the best solution is for the city of Germantown. In this case, previous to this, when this was actually bid, we only received 3 bids, and only one bidder, Mid-South Solution, was able to handle all of the uniform needs for this specialty type of uniform, which is police, fire, and safety. So no, we are not doing. I would not have brought it to this board for approval had it violated any of those measures.
Thank you, Director Peafer. You still have the floor, Alderman Sanders.
Thank you. Just one final question. The MTS attorney stated she didn't have any statute on point that addresses the topic. Does our city attorney know of any state statute that governs this or would prohibit us approving this tonight?
I do not, Mayor. I would tell the Alderman that the type of evaluation this process would go through if it was ever challenged would be, does it violate the spirit of the bid process? There is nothing written down that says X, Y, and Z etched in stone. And I'm not aware of anything else. It's just this process is there for a reason. Are we not going through the process for a valid reason? That's for somebody else to decide. But I don't feel like we violated the spirit of the bid process, given the facts that the procurement director has given us.
Thank you, Attorney McCarroll. That concludes your time on the floor, Alderman Sanders. Further discussion?
Sure, Mayor.
You're recognized, Alderman Massey.
Well, I think I want to first thank Alderman Sanders for asking for this to be moved to the regular agenda so that we could have this discussion. The points that he's raised really have been excellent, quite frankly. I mean, there are things here that I didn't think about. Alderman Sanders spent his life in public safety. So I know when he brings these points up, you know, something that might cause uniforms not to be approved, it's not something that he takes lightly, probably not something that he wants to do. I think it's hard on him, frankly. And as a matter of fact, I know it is. People will question his motives, but he wants these things to be correct, to be transparent. And
Point
frankly,
of order, Mayor.
Thank you. What is your point of order, please, Alderman Gibson?
For us to be germane to the topic rather than what one of our colleagues is or is not doing, if we could just stay focused, please.
Thank you, Alderman Gibson. Your point is well taken. Alderman Massey, please speak to the subject matter and not the motivation of your colleague, Alderman Sanders. He can speak to that himself. Go ahead, sir.
Well, what I was getting around to is that I think that the members of the city that are part of our public safety would want this to be as transparent as possible. And I think that given that there's no uniforms that are in any apparent urgent need at this time, I think that they, like Alderman Sanders, would probably like to make sure that this is done correctly and in the spirit of the law, as Attorney McCarroll said. And so toward that goal, I think the prudent thing to do tonight would be to simply make a motion to postpone this vote until we have more information. Now, if it's necessary for us to take bids on this item, I think most of the people in public safety and fire and police would want us to do it that way. So if Alderman Sanders, I'll have another round, but if Alderman Sanders would make that motion to postpone this vote, I think it's prudent. I would support it. So Alderman Sanders, thank you again, sir.
Thank you, Alderman Massey. Further discussion?
If nobody else does, Mayor, I'll be happy to.
Go ahead. You have the floor, Alderman Sanders.
I only had one last thing to say. I appreciate the support of my colleague. After hearing the answers of staff and our city attorney, I just wanted to make sure that we were looking out for the city legally, legal-wise, make sure there was no possibility that we had the potential of other vendors coming back and making complaint that we extended this contract for 6 months or 8 months, I'm sorry, without competitive bid. But I believe the answers we've received, or I have received, convinced me we're not doing anything contrary to the law. And I think we probably, I know it's uncharted ground. We have no statute or legal opinion whether what we're doing is incorrect. And I just wanted to make sure that's what we were doing. So I think I do appreciate my colleagues' offer of support, but I think I am in a position to support this extension. We're not planning on spending money immediately. There's no pressing need. So I think the explanations given assure the citizens that we aren't violating any statutes or procurement rules. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Sanders. Further discussion?
Sure, Mayor, briefly.
Yes, go ahead. You're recognized, Alderman Massey.
I was going to leave this in the preliminary agenda. I would have voted or supported it from the beginning, but based on the questions Alderman Sanders has
Please
raised,
refer to your colleagues by your colleagues and not by their names. Continue, sir. You have the floor.
Well, that makes it difficult for the citizens to know which colleague made the comments, but okay.
If they're listening, they know that your colleague mentioned you as his colleague. I think we all understood that. Continue. You have the floor, sir.
Okay. It just seems to distract from our transparency.
You have the floor. Continue with your comments.
So based on the comments by my colleague initially regarding the concerns about the legality of this vote and the responses from my other colleagues as well as the city attorney, I have less confidence now than I did when the issue was removed from the preliminary agenda to the regular agenda. So I'm all for providing uniforms to the members of our police and fire departments, but this type of contract extension, quite frankly, makes me uncomfortable given the concerns raised by my colleague earlier. So I'm not going to vote against it, but I am going to abstain because I feel uncomfortable about the answers or explanations that were provided tonight. So thank you again to my colleague who moved this from the preliminary agenda to the regular agenda for discussion.
Thank you, Alderman Massey. Further discussion?
Yes, Mayor.
Yes, Alderman Owens.
Yes, thank you. I just appreciate the due diligence by Alderman Sanders as well, but also
please refer to him as your colleague. Go ahead.
My colleague. I apologize. forget it. And so I also appreciate the diligence and the work by staff and their thorough explanation, as well as Attorney McCarroll, for providing me with a level of satisfaction and comfort that we are doing the right thing in this case. And as always, I appreciate staff and their knowledge and their work and what they do. And in this case, I think they've set my mind at ease that we are doing the right thing in this agenda item. So that's all, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Owens. Further discussion? Please call the roll.
Alderman Massey,
Abstain.
Alderman Owens,
Yes.
Alderman Yonda,
Yes.
Alderman Sanders,
Yes.
Alderman Gibson.
Yes.
The measure carries and passes. I would like to just thank Attorney McCarroll and the MTAS attorney as well for weighing in on that particular item during the day. Both issued what I would quantify as quasi opinions that the city procurement office was operating with best practices in mind. We've reached the conclusion of this evening's agenda. I would remind the community and the board lacks a quorum during fall break, which I believe begins on October the 12th. So our next regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen will fall on October the 28th. Those announcements and information will be shared with the public. And in closing, item 10 was moved to the preliminary agenda, amendment to interlocal agreement, Shelby County government. I would just like to point out quickly, staff member Sherry Rowlett was instrumental in uncovering some of these funds that may not have made their way to the city of Germantown. So she's in budget and performance team. And so Sherry, bravo, Zulu, attaboy, we appreciate your work. With that said, we are adjourned. Have a good evening, Germantown.